everybody, just wanted to hop on here. I'm actually going to talk about several different podcasts or books today, but I will make them in separate episodes so you can watch them, whatever you're interested in. So the other day I was listening to the One Thing podcast. I just have started reading that book, and I am not very far into it, so I don't have a lot to say about the book right now. But as far as this podcast, they had James Clear on, who wrote the book Atomic Habits, which is a fantastic book. If you have not read that, you should read it. He's got a wonderful story. It's very inspiring. But anyway, they were talking about this concept about the plateau of latent potential, which I found very interesting. Something that James Clear said, was, when I become frustrated about lack of results, remember the work is not being wasted, it is being stored. And this is where the plateau of latent potential theory comes in. And the way that he explained it that I thought was so interesting is, imagine that you were in a room with a table and a ice cube. And the room is very cold. The ice is obviously frozen, thus this is why it's ice. And you want to melt that ice. Well, you turn the thermostat up in the room, and say you start at 25 degrees, and you turn the thermostat up 1 degree at a time, 25 degrees, 26 degrees, 27 degrees, and nothing is happening with that ice cube. It's still solid ice. You get up to 31 degrees and 32 degrees, and all of a sudden, that ice, it begins to melt. Now, that ice did not suddenly start to melt once you got to 33 degrees or 32 degrees. That process was started. It was getting warmer and warmer and warmer until it warmed up to the point where it would begin to melt. And that is so true with so many things in our life. We think about working out. Say we're doing strength training, and we see no results and no results and no results. And, it can be so frustrating because we're putting the work in. But all of a sudden, one day we see muscle tone where there was no muscle tone. Or, we've lost a pound on the scale, or, whatever the case may be. Well, that didn't happen that instant. All the work that we have put in up until now, it has been being stored and has been working behind the scenes, so to speak. So it just really was encouraging to me to think of it that way. I had never thought about that. He says, let's see, sometimes we are succeeding so slowly we feel like we are failing. But sometimes, and this is the opposite, sometimes we're failing so slowly we think we're succeeding. So it goes both ways. It goes back to the Slight Edge book that I read, where, he was talking about, we're on this path, and these little choices that we make every day, there's no success and there's no failure. We can't see the results in the moment, but over time, we're either on the curve to success or on the curve to failure. And I thought that was very interesting. Sometimes we're failing so slowly we think we're succeeding, but we get down the road and all of a sudden we look back and we're faced with this failure that we just didn't even see coming. And then I thought a really good tip that he gave was in habit building, because that's Atomic Habits. It's all about building small habits. He says, never miss twice. There are times that we are going to say, we are on a no sweets diet, and we have that, cookie. Okay, so you had that cookie, but the next time, don't let that happen a second time in a row, because that's when that snowball begins to build. Or, you are building a habit of going to the gym every day. Well, maybe you missed one day. Don't let it happen the second day. So I found it extremely, extremely interesting. Lots of good tips. That was just a very small tidbit of the podcast. Once again, that was the one thing, episode 222 on Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I encourage you to go find that podcast and take a listen. Bye now.